turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move.
superhero. Can I be your superhero? Superhero. 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 Can I be your superhero? Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless. Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling fearless. Exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still. Hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall. Fear outweighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
Got your rock side, sends one to the left, circle of the shot, scores! And the Zydeco skate off with a victory. Welcome back here to the Queen here in 1717, here in Louisiana, here in Baton Rouge for the Coaches Show. It's going to be the last one of the regular season. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a little bit of what happened against the Watertown Wolves. We're also going to be talking about playoffs here inside the Queen. Welcome here inside. My name is Brian Flores, joined alongside head coach Everett Thompson. Welcome back here to the show. Glad to have you all with us. And, Coach, glad to have you with us.
How's it going?
Nothing much. You know what else is going on? Playoffs. You guys clinched. We're able to have a successful weekend here against Watertown. I want to walk you through what happened, but first, I want to get your reaction, just kind of gauge, playoffs. You guys clinched it. How you feeling?
Yeah, it's a long journey to get there. Thankful that we're finally into the second part of the season, second phase, in our second year, which is huge. But yeah, it's kudos to the guys, but we're just getting started.
All right, so just talking about the Watertown Wolves here real quick for the first game, first night. You guys were able to welcome back the fans to the River Center with a 5-3 victory. So in that game, we saw a couple of storylines developing for you guys. You also had Dmitry Kuznetsov finding his first goal in a while, getting a couple of goals during this weekend. And Ross Bartlett gets his first as a Zydeco as a trick shot, able to find a Michigan to beat former goaltender Brennan Colgan. And Rio Namiki also finds his first goal since November 30th. So I just want to get your reaction to that first game and what do you thought happened?
Yeah, the first game back in a couple weeks is always nice to be back on home ice, get in front of the fans again. We came out right away there. Had to fight a little bit of getting back on home ice, just getting back to the usual routine of things. After we kind of found our game there, though, there was never really looking back there. It's always great that Kuzi, found the back of the net there. His game gets going there right away. From a net drive goal there, especially, he finds the back of the net there. Beautiful shot. Then, Rio's goal, just from hard work, a lot of good little plays up the ice there. Then, he's rewarded by a, short side shot that finds a way, It's one of those things that, you do the right little things continuously, and, one guy gets rewarded for a lot of other guys' work, Other than that, though, it's a good way to start the weekend, obviously. You can't, going into the playoffs here, it's one of those things where a lot of three-game weekend potential, so it's always big to get the first one if you can.
So just talking about real quick that first game and just how you guys were able to be welcomed back here into Baton Rouge, especially after the weekend against Athens. It's always a tough trip going up to Athens. It's a long road trip, and plus you're talking about quality of opponent. Coming back here at home, sleeping in your own beds, and getting used to a daily routine here again, especially going to be the first back-to-back home weekends for you guys since the first half of the season. What's one thing that you yourself kind of are taking advantage of? Just getting into a home routine.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that the guys probably had earlier on is their little routine you have throughout the day, just those little things right there. It's a lot easier to be, when you're able to practice in your own arena and whatnot, comparatively to having to travel every single day, even for practice, then games, it adds up. So, just having that extra little hour or two of rest, extra sleep in your bed just goes a long way.
And talk about that Michigan goal from Ross Bartlett, able to find the back of the net and do it in style. And not only that, I was looking back at it. He went into it. Usually there's like a little bit of a, will I do it, won't I do it? But then, he saw it and he just did it right away. And it wasn't like it was a junk goal. That wasn't a 6-2 goal. That was a goal to find the lead here for the guys.
Yeah, just one of those just plays. The guys, this ability, especially nowadays, this age of players, they all can kind of do it now. It's one of those, it's a trick shot, obviously, but you'll see it more and more. He kind of, definitely ate it there for doing it too. He took a big hit there, but, you got to take big hits to make plays. And, it's one of those things where, it's one of those players that's tenacious and will go to the net and will do things like that. And that's, why we brought him in.
And just talking about the other two storylines that I mentioned, Kuznetsov, I know you mentioned just him finding the net, absolutely huge, and especially Rio Namiki finding his first since November 30th. What does that do to a player's mentality, able to find the first goal in a while?
No, it depends on the player, right? Like for Kuzi, a guy that's supposed to score goals, you really hope that starts to, become something that creates more of those habits, finds the back of the net more and more for us. For Rio, it's great that he gets rewarded, but it's not really one thing that we're necessarily banking on Rio scoring goals. It's not really his game. Not that he can't get rewarded for goal scoring. It's just, for us to be successful, if Rio plays his role, he knows his role, and scoring is, one of those things that, November 30th is tough. You're not going to get a lot of goals, though, being a defensive defenseman, and that's what he's going to be best at. So.
All right, so just lumbering in here to game two. It was not exactly the best look here for the Zydeco, losing 7-3, but in that game, you guys were able to clinch regardless. So Kuznetsov again gets his second goal in back-to-back games. Tyler Larwood finds his first home goal since January 4th, and not to bury the lead, but despite a crushing loss, the Zydeco able to clinch a playoff spot with a moccasins loss. So just kind of, I want your emotions and your reactions to that second game, and especially when you learn that you guys clinched the playoffs.
Clinching the playoffs in a game where you lose is nothing, not something you really want to do necessarily. You're happy you clinched, but at the same time, I don't think the score necessarily reflects the game necessarily, but at the same time, you gotta be better than that. You can't let a couple bounces go that way necessarily. A few calls didn't go our way for a few minutes there, and then they get a few bounces. The game can go that way pretty quickly at this level. You're going to get a few of those in a 56-game season as well. You can't forget that. You're going to have a few minutes occasionally that just get away from you. It happens in hockey. But at the same time, you're happy that you clinched. You put that away and put the game away, and you look at it from a full scope, macro scope per se. It's a big thing for us to be a second-year organization. There's teams and organizations that have been around that have never even, gotten to the postseason before. So, for us to do it in our second year, and it's a kudos to us. Kudos to the whole organization from the top down. All the guys worked really hard. Some of the guys that returned from last year, they worked extremely hard. So, it's a reward for those guys, and then the guys that came on board and helped us get to where we wanted to go. It's a goal we set in the beginning of the year, and it always feels good to achieve your goals and accomplish something that you set out to do. And we're just it's one of the goals we set. So hopefully we can get more of the things we set out to do.
So just taking a little bit of a step back and taking a look, you mentioned second year you guys were able to make the playoffs in just your second year of existence. Flash me back to last year. Obviously, I wasn't here, but going from that kind of locker room, because I was kind of peeping your guys' scores from the latter half of last year. You guys were generating a lot of wins from the last part of last year and really carried it into the first part of this year. How much of a character build did you guys have during the offseason to allow for a playoff clinching scenario this weekend?
Some of the guys that came back, leadership's huge. They adapted to those new roles that they knew they were going to come into. That we needed to have. You need to have good leadership if you're going to take the steps we took this year. And it's one of the things that, Larwood came in, is going to have it here today. He's one of the guys that stepped in this summer. Knew he was going to have a big summer, and he did it. Without those guys having goals for their own personal goals in the summer, and going out and doing the work, we don't get to where we are right now. So it's it's ultimately those guys that bear the work. But at the same time, there's lots of people behind the scenes doing a lot of other things that we're not where we're at without their help too. So it's like I said, it's an entire organization. It's our booster club. It's everyone here. Gives themselves a pat on the back for this. It's a big reward.
It definitely is, and pat yourself on the back too, Coach. I would say that you have been insurmountable to the success here from the latter half of last year when you came in to this year, getting the program in shape, getting the locker room together, and the battle plans that you have. When you came in last year, what was the vision? What was the goal, especially into the team that you kind of took over and adopted?
The vision at first was just to fix things, make things better, and I think if you come with that approach every day, even now it's the same thing. Things have gotten to where they are, but at the same time, we're still trying to get somewhere else. We're still trying to become something that we're not yet, and that's the fun part about being a new organization and a young organization, and having a young group of people that are doing this at the same time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have little hiccups occasionally, but at the same time, we're growing. It's hard. It's one of those things where sometimes it's hard to see the progress, but then you see a playoff picture. You see these these accomplishments. You see some of the guys getting call-ups. These are a lot of things that didn't happen last year that around this time last year we weren't seeing, and in just a year's time we're getting those we're getting those accolades, we're getting those rewards. So like I said, it's a whole organization that's doing everything and pulling the rope in the same direction here, which is huge.
So taking a look here at Game 3, Aaron Shaheen rises to the occasion. He nets his first goal since January 18th and actually netted the game winner after that. Tyler Larwood gets his second goal of the weekend, scoring in back-to-back games since the first time since his series against the Dashers Hockey Club. Zydeco scored 3 straight, able to have a comeback win, coming back from 5-3, winning 6-5. And again, with just how tenacious this group is and just how gritty that this win was and this weekend was, really, taking a look at the guys here in the locker room, how insurmountable was this weekend for you guys heading into the postseason?
Well, I think it's one of those another perspective things. Watertown is a good team. They've been in the playoffs the last couple of seasons consistently, so it's one of those things where, as we build to the group we're trying to become, we have to beat these teams that are consistently in the postseason, that are consistently doing the right things. At the same time, like you said, we were tenacious. Coming back from two goal leads, coming back from that is huge. It shows that we don't really give up in games. We're not going to just go away, even if we have a 2-goal lead, that we can fight back and have that resilience, have that chip on our shoulder here, and ultimately it's one of those things where when we were doing things the right way, it never really felt like we were out of it. It just felt like, hey, some bounces were happening, hockey was occurring, and once we got over that, the puck just started to go our way, I think, the second part of that game. Then the third period is just, that's a playoff game, that's a playoff period right there. It's, all you need is one goal, all you need is one bounce, and we did the things the right way for us to put ourselves in that position to be there, and we get the goal and, we get the win for that, and that's what ultimately this time of year, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be one period sometimes where you just need one goal and you got to prevent them from scoring. That's all it is. And kudos to our goaltending, kudos to our defense for stepping up, and kudos to all the guys, that was a big 20 minutes that third period. The last couple of weeks, might have created some doubt in some people's minds that, maybe they're going to get tired in the third period. No, we knew internally that, we had a few stumpers in the third, and, you just got to get over those, and we were able to, which is huge, especially because, talk about Saturday night, it didn't exactly have a third period that we'd like to have. And then, in a situation the next night where, we're hopefully going to be in these situations again here, if it's a game 3 situation, third period, one team's got to get one goal, we were fortunate enough to, have that. So that's one of those things where here on out, as long as we have that mentality, as, the next period's all we have to focus on, and the next shift, we can do a lot of good things.
And just taking a look here again at the key players from the weekend. For the Zydeco, you guys had a few. Dmitry Kuznetsov coming back to form, netting 2 goals and 2 assists last weekend against the Watertown Wolves. Tyler Larwood earning 2 goals and 2 assists on the weekend versus the Wolves, leading the team to a win after a third goal tying the game with 11 seconds left. Elijah Wilson earning 2 goals and 3 assists and 5 points, leading the team in points on the weekend. And, of course, Ross Bartlett coming in to his first goal and first game as a Zydeco, scoring in Michigan, earning 2 goals and 1 assist on the weekend. So, as we bring you back here live to the 17-17 here in the Queen, I want your initial thoughts here on making the postseason and how this weekend, how this pretty much latter half of the season is going to help you get into the postseason with a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, well, the latter half of the season, it's we get some home games finally, which is huge. We're playing, another team that's in, ranking-wise right around us, and it really, I think, prepares us for the opponent that we have to see in the first round here, which will be Blue Ridge. It's one of the opponents that we've had some success against throughout this year, and it's one of those things where they're hot right now too, which is good to see. It's going to be at a playoff game that's ultimately going to mean a lot. It's just a one-game play-in too, so anything can kind of happen, whether it be at our rink or at theirs. It's just one of those things where ultimately whatever team can find the you kind of find a settled, whatever team can find the roller coaster ride that's going to be, whatever team finds that ground level early, the fastest and, comes together the earliest, ultimately is going to win that game. And then that's going to hopefully set the tone for whatever team wins that game goes into, the top seed. And, hopefully whatever team comes from that series can gather and gander some momentum to take out them. It's one of those things. This is one of those levels where anything can happen in any game in these 2-3 game series. 2 games can happen really quickly where if, you don't win your first home game, especially where these lower seed teams get the first game at home. You win your first game, it can be a whole series quickly, or it can be 2 games quickly. It's it's one weekend of hockey, which makes it really exciting.
It really does, and again, when you mentioned the Blue Ridge Bobcats, you guys linked up here earlier on in the month, and you were able to split that series in the first game. You guys came from behind, winning 3-2, and the second one losing 2-1 in a regulation fashion. And these last 2 weeks, I think, really have, in my opinion, been a blessing in disguise for you guys, because it's not like you guys have clinched and you guys are kind of resting on any laurels. There are still meaningful hockey still to be played this weekend. As you mentioned, not exactly done in the seeding race, as you guys can lock up home ice. So in these last 2 weekends, you feel that going into the postseason, already playing meaningful hockey is very important?
Well, I think it's been something we've been doing for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, honestly, now. We've been kind of in a playoff mode now for a few weeks, playing some of the opponents we've had to play as well. We know their opponents we're going to see in the latter half of the playoffs if we make it there. Ultimately, if you're going to win a championship, it's probably going to be through Columbus or Athens or Carolina. And, we've seen Athens quite a bit this latter half of the year especially. So, did you get the results against them in the regular season? No, but that's the best part about playoffs. It's a clean slate. Whatever you did in the regular season doesn't matter. The stats go back to zero. So, we got to see him a lot, which is good. We got a lot of film on him. That's ultimately all we can really ask for now is, to self-correct ourselves here so that we can be the best team we can be when we have to face these teams.
So from last year to this year, what would you say is the biggest improvement that you've made, not only as a team, but as yourself as a coach?
That's a tough one. Only came in for a few games last year, basically. So, I think it's one of the things where as a group we've all kind of grown. We've seen a lot of changes, especially just from the beginning of training camp to now, roster-wise, how we have to play. You learn a lot of different things from a lot of different coaches, not only at this level but the levels above and below. So it's, you lean on your mentors, and then I think the guys are the same way. They know that it's, they've got me, they've got themselves, and they've also got, their former coaches and their mentors as well. And, it's one of those things where this level's, it's interesting. It's a big, tight-knit community in a sense. A lot of guys know each other. Every weekend you're seeing someone you probably played with or against at some point. So, there's a lot of uniqueness that comes to this. That's, it's a little different than what I think people think sometimes. But at the same time, it's a competitive game. Hockey's one of those things where two teams are, no matter what, showing up on the weekend here and trying to, take through 6 to 9 points depending on the weekend here, and it's all business once we show up to the rink, so it's fun.
So final question here as we wrap up the recap section. What's your mentality going into this weekend against the Moccasins and the Wolves?
Yeah, I think we still have, like you said, meaningful hockey to play. We can still secure home ice, so we're still trying to do that. We're still in a playoff mentality here. Every game still matters for us, which is awesome. It's one of those things where in the beginning of the year when the guys came to come and play here, they wanted to play meaningful games, and they're getting it.
All right, so next up, we're going to be taking a look at the numbers between the Moccasins and the Wolves here with the Zydeco as they link up for the final week of regular season play here at the Raising Cane's River Center. Stick right here with us here at the Queen here in 1717.
Where to begin at church funeral services? We'll handle it all with care, passion. Church funeral services.
We do things with passion. Everybody here really is invested. So if something can be done better, we challenge the status quo.
The trust that we offer to our clients it comes pretty easy for us because we've been doing this a long time, and 90% of the jobs that we get are referrals. That's what we depend on, and we strive to let the customer know that we're going to be here. We will always answer the phone.
Welcome back here inside the Queen here in 1717. Starting off here with the Moccasins. In their entire season, their record is 18-23, 8-4 for 70 points. They were eliminated last weekend against the Columbus River Dragons. So far this season, they have 176 goals for, which is 6th place in the division, 184 goals against, which is again 6th place, and a final 6th place differential of a -8. On their power play side, they have a 19.2% on the man advantage, good enough for 10th in the league. And their penalty kill is an 83.9%, which is 5th in the league. So far this season against the Zydeco, they are 1-2-2-3, and they have outscored the Zydeco 30-26 so far in the season series. So right now, the Zydeco seem to have the advantage in this series coming into this weekend. And again, their top players in the weekend is going to be Seth Bacon. In the past 6 games, has 5 points against the Zydeco, has had a couple of good games and pretty good success. Corey Cunningham has 9 points in the past 7 games, only to get his 6-point streak snapped by the Columbus River Dragons last game. And the final player of note is going to be Blake Anderson, prior to last weekend, riding an 8-point point streak against the Columbus River Dragons, got snapped. So as I bring us back here, let's take a look at the Monroe Moccasins. Coach, what do you see here against this Bayou Battle brother?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're getting down to the last game against them. It's been a fun series against them all year. It's always nice to have an opponent that's close in proximity again. Them in Mississippi have been, great additions to have to travel to. It's nothing's better than having to travel 2-3 hours compared to the 7, 8, 9, 14-hour trips we have to do sometimes. So, it's awesome to have them around. It's one of the things where, you look at the lineup, there's a few guys from last year's team, a few guys familiar faces from around our team. Then, they're a lot different from the beginning of the year. So, they didn't make the playoffs, but it's one of the teams that they got progressively better throughout the season. Definitely, you add the top point getter in the league with Jesso there. They got some, last year, one of the top point getters in the league, Leo Rockos, it gets added late. So, they got a lot of guys here. Houston Wilson spent most of the year in the SP. A lot of guys on this lineup here that have done some, have some impressive resumes, but at the same time, that's why it's a great part about being a team game. You got a bunch of individuals versus a team. The team usually wins. We've had a good run of having a team structured game all year here. It's one of our benefits of having a core group of guys that have, kind of stuck together throughout the year. Really know each other really well, play together well, and I think that's our benefit when push comes to shove is that, we play in 5-man units, and, a lot of the teams we play against rely on individual skills. So, hopefully that mentality comes through here and wins us a game.
And one player of note as well, Sean Kuhn. The last time you guys faced off against him, it was in Monroe. You guys were able to skate off with a 3-2 victory in Monroe, and that was back in February 14th. So taking a look here against the goaltending matchup between Kuhn, what's something that you guys are going to do to try to prepare here for tomorrow night's game?
Yeah, I mean, he's just another goalie in the league. At the end of the day, these goalies are all really good. They're all, at the end of the day, you get in their eyes. You get a lot of traffic. You take away their ability to make saves, it's hard to play goalie. That's what our job is to do. Like I said, they got some really good players. At the end of the day, our guys are going to go in there and, do everything we can to win a game.
All right, so let's take a look at the second game in the weekend. It's going to be against the Mississippi Seawolves. So against the Seawolves, you guys have had a pretty good record. Taking a look here against the Seawolves, you guys were able to go 6-3-1-1. And taking a look here at the Seawolves numbers, 117 goals for. They had 245 goals against. And that differential, well, it's going to be 7th place in the division, a -128 on the week, or beg your pardon, on the season for the Seawolves, as they not exactly a good season for them offensively, but taking a look at their man advantage, they seem to have a 11.5 power play and a penalty kill percentage of a 75.2 on the penalty kill, and their record so far this season, 10-40-3. So again, when it comes to their season, they've not exactly had the prettiest looking record, but against the Zydeco, again, 3-6-1-1, and they were outscored by the Zydeco 44-21. Taking a look at their top leading players, you have Curtis Hansen, second most assists on the team with 14 and has the third most points on the team with 26. Dalton Anderson has the most goals on the team with 18 and leads the team in offensive output with points per game average. And finally, Brennan Hussey leads the team in points and assists, as well as leads the team in second most offensive output with the second most points per game average. So you guys are going to be closing off this series against the Mississippi Seawolves. I want to get your reaction here. What do you think about these Seawolves ending off the season for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things where I think a lot of people don't understand this. It is a rivalry game whenever we play each other, but I think it's another one of the things where you look at the roster. There's a lot of guys that were here last year that want to be back here this year, and obviously weren't. And I think when these two teams meet, it's one of those things where they got a lot of guys that are playing with a lot of, emotion. They play, a lot harder than probably they do most teams. So, when we see them, we're seeing a different team than most teams see. And it's one of those things I think, they don't get credit for is when they play us very hard. They're giving everything they got, Other than the one game in the very beginning of the year, every single game against them has been, relatively close. And I think it's one of the things where, those guys play with that chip on their shoulder whenever they play against us. And I'm not to say that, we play down, but I think it's one of those things where, we got some guys that look at the standings before and go, whatever, the minus and all that. And, I think you got to really throw that out when you play a team that's, one, your rivalry, but two, has a lot of guys that are, at the end of the day wanted to be where you were. I think it's just one of the things where, it's human nature at the end of the day, it's that raw emotion that they play with that, sometimes we don't necessarily play with against them. And, occasionally it's been there, and that's when we do well and that's when we win. But, it's kudos to them. They've been a thorn in our side all year because of that, I think. And, it's one of those things where it's kudos to those guys. They work really hard. They haven't exactly had the season and success that they wished for. But, it's one of those things where it's probably similar to Bama and LSU playing. It doesn't really matter what the season is. You can kind of make it a successful year if you win that game alone. So, we've got to kind of look at it that way going forward here. They are our rivalry and our main rivalry, and we got to start taking it a little bit more personal.
And you mentioned a little bit of a thorn in your guys' side. Last time you guys linked up, you had 2 straight losses, one in a shootout, one in regulation. 3-2 was that one in regulation back on March 9th, and then March 8th, just a day prior, a 4-3 shootout loss. And again, with this Mississippi team, I tend to agree. They've been one that their numbers don't exactly reflect how tenacious this team is. It's a lot of guys, as you mentioned, playing with a chip on their shoulder. Don Carter Jr. is one that comes to mind. Last time he played you guys, he was able to get a couple in on you guys, and you also have Philip Long, who is a rising star here for the Mississippi Seawolves as of late, and Isaiah Parrish coming in to this weekend. Won pointless last weekend, but against the Ben Zydeco seemingly coming back to life. So again, you mentioned it's more of a human nature type of thing. You have two rivals going at each other, and it's one of those things. Once these guys get on the ice with you, it's just throw the stats out. These guys will want to rip each other's throats out. Yeah,
I don't think it's anything. There's a couple players there, that have also played. I think Mississippi last year was a playoff team. A veteran like Wong, he's been around for a couple of years now. He's had some good seasons of putting up points before. It's one of those things where you have one year, if the team doesn't have success, individual stats are going to reflect that, unfortunately. When you have team success, you have individual success. They got guys like, Turner still, Wong, Obviously still got, I don't know if Barr will be here this weekend or not, but, they still have him. They had some long-time players that have played at some, good levels and have played some good hockey and, put up numbers before. It's just, one of the unfortunate things where if you don't have, the consistent effect of, they've had a few coaching changes. They've had a tough year. It's one of those things. But at the end of the day, that's our main rival, and we got to take all the points we can from them.
All right, so as we close out this section of the Coaches Show here with Everett Thompson, I want to give you a couple of questions as a parting gift. But as you guys close out the season at home, what do you think the energy is going to be like here for tomorrow and this weekend?
Yeah, if it's anything like last season, our biggest crowds were the last weekend of the regular season last year, and we're hoping for that same turnout again this weekend. When the Raising Cane Center gets a little bit full, it's loud. So it's a fun place to play. Hopefully we get a lot of people in there this weekend and it's loud.
And it's going to be kind of a loaded question here, and it kind of goes off of the last question about the home crowd. You guys clinch playoffs now. You're trying to clinch home ice. How much importance are you putting on clinching home ice here, playing a single game against the Bobcats here at the Raising Cane's River Center?
Yeah, it's super important to us. Obviously, if you look at it from a travel perspective, it's everything. It's a 14-hour trip versus sleeping in your own bed. We definitely want to play that first in one game, playing game at home. Home ice advantage is huge in a few different aspects, especially at this level. But, we're not going to get into too many specifics of that. But, we definitely want to play, if it comes down to one game, we want to play with our, as much as home as possible, as much of the things you can control you want to have. So home ice is where we can do that the best, and that's where we want to play.
All right, finally, heading into the playoffs, what's the major area of focus that you're going to be trying to drill into this locker room?
Defense, and defense. It's the one thing you control in hockey the entire pace of the way. It's one of the things that we've, when we're doing our best, when we're playing our best hockey, it's play defense-first hockey.
All right, thank you so much, Coach. Next up, we're going to be welcoming in the captain, Tyler Larwood, to kind of close out the Coaches Show as our Momentum Building Services featured player interview. So, Coach, thank you so much.
No problem, thank you.
If you want to catch Coach, you can still get your tickets for the Monroe Moccasin game tomorrow night at 7:05 at the Raising Cane's River Center. You can email Lucy at brzydeco.com, call 225-515-PUCK, or you can visit the box office on River Road. So hope to see you tomorrow night and this weekend against the Monroe Moccasins and the Mississippi Sea Wolves. So, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And just taking a look here at the promo, you can also get your playoff tickets. They are on sale now. The play-in round is going to be Tuesday the 15th, where the 4th seed hosts the 5th seed. And that one again, Tuesday the 15th. Location to be determined after this weekend. Round 1 starts on the 18th. It's going to be a best of 3. So again, if you want your playoff tickets, for more information, email hope at brzydeco.com. Follow our social media page, as well as take a look at our website to keep up on any information to do with the playoff tickets. Next up, we're going to be welcoming in Tyler Larwood here at our featured player interview. Stick with us here on Zydeco TV here in the Queen at 1717.
Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails. Wall-to-wall, state-of-the-art TVs mean you'll see every touchdown, Hail Mary, and big turnover in crystal clear HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our DraftKings Sportsbook. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino in Baton Rouge, where every moment is a win.
The Men's Network started when I went to a computer club meeting in the 7th grade that Brett organized. At that point, I had never met anyone that was as good at computers as Brett was. And by the 8th grade, we figured out that this was something that we could do professionally.
We moved to Baton Rouge to go to LSU, and that's really where our business got planted.
Give Immense a call. Let us show you how IT should be done.
We've gotten very good at roofing. We're good at the actual work, but also the documentation from the beginning. Getting everything with the client, what do they need? What are their needs? And then how can I give them a couple of options? And then from there, during the process, they know what's going on, and then at the end, feeling good about everything that's complete, and they're happy when they're done with their job.
For over 90 years, Don's Seafood has been a Louisiana staple. From the finest Gulf catch to the most authentic Cajun recipes, our commitment to quality and tradition is who we are. Enjoy favorites like our gumbo, jacked up shrimp, seafood salad, steak, and of course, our signature seafood platter. Don's is more than just food. We're a celebration of flavor and family. From our team at Don's Seafood, we want to thank you for the last 90 years and cheers to many more together.
Welcome back here to the Coaches Show here at 1717. Just one last final reminder. The Commissioner Cup's playoffs is finally coming back here for the first time in Baton Rouge. 4th seed hosts 5th seed in the play-in round. The first round is going to be on September 18th. It's going to be a best of 3. The play-in round of best of 1, obviously. And it's going to be Tuesday the 15th. So we're going to decide who will host who. It's going to be the Blue Ridge Bobcats and the Baton Rouge Zydeco. After this weekend, we'll see who is going to be playing as the home team. So if it's going to be the Zydeco, it's going to be here at the River Center. So for more information, email hope@brzydeco.com. Make sure you're following all of our socials and keeping up with our website for any of the latest news and developments. Let's bring us back here live at 1717 here for the Coaches Show. With me, I have the captain, Tyler Larwood. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for asking, man. You know, it's going to be kind of a curveball question, but I want to know, when you were named captain, what did that mean for you?
I take that with a lot of responsibility. Take pride in it. I think this city really thrives on success, and I want to be a captain that helps drive us in the right direction. Being here for a good majority of the season last year, going through a lot of losses, and still having the support of the fans that we had, I saw a lot of potential here, and I really wanted to grasp that. Over the summer, I really just wanted to try to build the group of guys that wanted to work hard, wanted the best for the team, and yeah, so big sense of responsibility there, and take pride in it, yeah.
And I know you're taking into the role well, especially after last weekend. You know, when I was in the booth, I saw you with the puck. It was so weird. You know, against Watertown, it was the third game. Scotty threw it down to you. You had it at the left circle, and I saw it, and it's like a split second before you shot. I was like, he's going to score. Like, immediately. What did that feel like, you know, just tying things up with 11 seconds left?
Yeah, big goal there. You know, Scotty made a really nice play to the net. Coxie drove the net hard, and puck laid there for me nice and easy, so I just had to clean up the garbage. And, you know, with playing with two guys like that, they do a lot of the dirty work for you, and it's really easy out there, so it felt good, yeah.
Not to bury the lead, man, but that was one stellar shot you had on net.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So just taking a look here this past weekend and really this past year, I want to know, how do you think this 24-25 season went? How do you think the campaign was for you guys?
I mean, obviously our first kind of goal was to make it in the playoffs. After a long season last year, lots of losing, and being at the bottom for a long time, I felt like we finally filled in that hole that we were digging all year and kind of stood on top of it for a moment. like Coach was saying, obviously we would have wanted clinched by winning, but clinching playoffs regardless still feels good, and it feels nice to kind of check that one off the list so far. And we still got more in the tank, and I know that the first goal was just to make it in and see what happens from there. So.
Yeah, and it seems like, you guys went in with a lot of fire, and especially after this series win against the Watertown Wolves, it was a really gutsy win for you guys. And as a leader, especially let's take that third game for example. You guys were able to tie it in the second period. Going into the final period, final 20. What's one thing that you kind of said to the guys to kind of spark the room?
I'm kind of the motivating voice. I don't really have the longest career in the league. I'm still learning myself, still under 100 games. So I kind of lean on Elijah and Kuzi and some of the other vets to guide the locker room in kind of the X's O's. But I just knew that we had more in the tank. The last couple of third periods, maybe we didn't show our best foot forward. But I know that we put in a lot of hard work off the ice at Nard, and I knew that we weren't tired. We were certainly not out-conditioned or anything like that. And it was nice for us to put out a nice third period there and show that that's the case. So.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, with your guys' leadership from top to bottom, it seems like you guys have really kind of instilled in each other to play a full 60, especially as of late. So heading into this next weekend, is that something that you're going to be trying to focus on?
Absolutely. It kind of goes into, the culture of our locker room. We have a lot of talented guys, but as a whole, we're a lot more talented. We put our best foot forward by working hard and just being a hard team to compete against. And when we do that for a full 60, I think we tire teams out and we out-battle them more than we out-skill them or out-finesse them, really. So, I think that's just the recipe going forward is just hard work and, keep going for a full 60.
So speaking of the locker room culture, I want to know, how did that culture evolve? Because you were here last year for a little bit as well. How did that evolve from, the beginning of the season, and or let me rephrase that, from the final part of last season, beginning part of this season to now, how did that locker room culture kind of evolve and shape?
Yeah, like I said last year, kind of dug the hole all season long. Just felt like we were just going deeper and deeper the whole season until Everett got here. He started to kind of change our perspective on things, taught us how to work together a little bit better, maybe play a better team system. And we were working hard and we had good players. We just weren't all pulling the rope in the same direction. And I think Everett kind of showed us how to do that a little bit. And then, like I said, bringing in those guys from last year, the good core group of guys like myself, Coxie, Scotty, Bailey, Elias, Ketsy was here for about 20 games or so. We started to feel what it felt like in Baton Rouge to have success. And those last 6 games of the season, when we really took care of business, it was like, wow, okay, what can we do here if we really put our best foot forward for the entire season? And then starting off so hot, I know we played a lot more games than a lot of other teams right off the bat, but it didn't matter. We still felt like we were on top because of the way we were playing, not because we played more games. So I think just a good blend of last year ending the season strong, and then this year picking it up again with good additions. Like I said, Elijah and Kuzi really coming in, teaching us how to be veterans in the league. I think it was just due to keep going forward. So, yeah.
As a leader of the locker room, adding in Kuzi, adding in a lot of these veteran presences that, because like you said yourself, this is only your sophomore season, and for the Zydeco, you're pretty much growing up in an organization that's trying to grow with you. And how much of an identity are you guys starting to develop here for this season and building around your on-ice identity?
Yeah, I think that comes from the guys that are in the locker room as well. How we play on the ice is basically how we got to the point that we are in. A lot of the guys here, weren't handed golden opportunities to get to the level we're in. We got a lot of guys that played ACHA college hockey, including myself. we're just guys that keep fighting through adversity and fight all the way to the end. And I think our fans and other teams around the league can see that. We're not a team of quitters. I know third periods sometimes get away from us, but we're not a team of quitters, and we're going to take you all the way to the end, and we're going to fight as hard as we possibly can. So I think that's our identity, and I think that comes from, kind of how we got here as a team too.
Yeah, a really gritty set mindset. And again, you guys proved it here against Watertown. That was a very gritty series from first game to last, and you guys really didn't have any quit to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes I said the third periods can get away from us a little bit, but we've kind of corrected that in the last couple of weeks here and keep putting our best foot forward.
All right. So, as I mentioned, it's going to be your sophomore season, and, you see your stats increase as well as the Zydeco in the second year. In your first season, you had 22 points in 39 games for a 0.6 points per game average, and you actually improved that a little bit for this season in 38 points in 52 games with a 0.7 points per game average. So when it comes to, the improvements that you've made in the offseason, how much can you attribute to that coming into the same organization? And again, a same organization that's going through the same thing that you're going through as a pro, just trying to find their identity as well in the front office as well as an organization.
Yeah. Well, last year I came in, I took 2 years off of competitive hockey. I was coaching full-time back home in Minnesota and still had the itch to play. And actually Curtis Hansen was here and helped me get here, thanks to MJ as well. Once I got down here, I didn't really have a goal for myself really necessarily for points or anything. I just wanted to see if I could fit in and if I could really do this. I didn't really train or anything until this summer after my first season. And after the first season, I saw, I do belong here. I can play at this level, and I felt like I could actually give more at this level. So I just kind of put my nose to the grindstone over the summer. And Coach also instilled a little bit of confidence in me as well. I think our play styles from back when he was playing kind of match each other a little bit. Maybe not the most talented with the puck. Maybe not doing Michigans behind the net like Scotty or Ross, but still hard-nosed player, taking it to the rack, still able to score goals. And I focused my game on a 200-foot game. So this season I wanted to get to 40 points. I sat at 31 for a month, so that was tough. But it's more about team success for me. As long as the team's going well, then I'm perfectly fine with it.
How crazy is that, knowing that you guys were probably the only team to score back-to-back here in the Fed of Michigan? You had Scotty, and now you have Ross.
It's crazy, especially seeing them both in person and at the River Center. Definitely didn't think I was going to be on a team that did that, so it's pretty cool.
And I was listening to Scotty's just because it's just it's just so crazy to know that same team back-to-back 2 straight years having a guy scoring a Michie. Scotty he televised it. It was just the previous announcer who we're going to be welcoming back in this weekend, Joseph. He had time to be like, oh, is he going to try Michigan? For me, it was just Ross was just picking up and going. I'm like, he had no plan on it. He just I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That is. So, heading into this weekend here against the Moccasins and the Mississippi Sea Wolves, you're going to be seeing some familiar faces. A lot of times you can look at, familiar faces, former teammates, and say, you know what, I think, with the guys we have, we grew, because, again, you mentioned that Brendan Hussey was the person that kind of helped you out, as well as MJ Graham. And you can also you can always look back into the past and just be like, you know what, we're thankful for what you have, but we're so glad that we've grown to who we are now. Is that the kind of mentality that you guys coming into the season had, and especially going into the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, obviously those guys are great players. Curtis and Brendan are leading their teams in points, and really helping their team get wins, especially here in the later part of the season. It wasn't necessarily about who they were as players or anything like that. It's just sometimes, just doesn't blend, and we had to move on. And I think the guys that we brought in and replaced them with really fit in, and have really been a driving force for our success this year. So it's tough to see your friends go. It's tough to see your friends on other teams, especially in a Seawolves jersey. But at the end of the day, it's fun to be out there against them and still competing. So.
And I was actually reading up on the Seawolves. They're going to be coming back next year. So, congratulations to the Seawolves organization as well as the Seawolf fans. You guys deserved it. And, it was a great experience calling games down in Biloxi. Going to be looking forward to doing it again next year. So as we move on here to the final bullet point, you guys are going to be shipping off to the playoffs here for the 2024-25 season. So as the captain taking charge and leading your team into the playoffs, I want to know, how did you all react on the bench, to the playoff berth initially?
Yeah, initially, kind of had a sour taste in our mouth from the game that we were currently playing, but obviously very excited that, we didn't have to really stress that Monroe could potentially catch us anymore. I'm glad that we still have kind of the ball in our side of the court, that we still own the possibility of playing a home game, and that's only based on if we win. That we don't need other people to lose or win games for us. So I like that a little bit, but like I said, it was a little bit of a sour taste right off the bat in a loss. But clinching the playoffs is still a big accomplishment for us, and we're happy to do so for sure.
And I know that a lot of these fans been itching for meaningful hockey. You guys as players have been itching for meaningful hockey, and now that you have a chance to, like you said, balls in your guys' court to win out and clinch home ice advantage and give the good people of Baton Rouge a good hockey fight for a single game playing round, is that something that really is coming into this weekend an underlying motivation for you guys?
Absolutely. Most people would think, the big motivator is not driving to Wytheville, Virginia. Obviously, that's a motivator, but playing in front of our home crowd, getting a playoff game in Baton Rouge is way more important to us. I drive all over the country to keep playing meaningful games, but I want to play games here. I think that's super important to us. So.
And, you guys as players, you guys are tough, gritty. I know that if you guys, end up needing to make the drive to Wytheville, you guys are going to be ready, revving, and raring to go. But I'm just going to say, as your broadcaster, I'm not. Listen, these guys condition for an entire year. I had McDonald's this morning. So that can tell you just how much of a conditioning that I have for a 17-hour drive. Anyway, so heading into the playoffs, I know you guys have a stipulation, a mentality, and an ultimate goal to winning a Commissioner Cup. But it's taking it step by step. What's something that you guys are going to be trying to take into this playoffs to try to keep you guys on track to that goal?
Yeah, just staying even-keeled, I think. Oftentimes the game is pretty emotional, but never being too high, never being too low, just trying to stay right in the middle there, I think is going to be key for us. We've seen it in a couple of our games. We get up and we kind of lose our mental focus for a little bit, and then all of a sudden our lead is gone. And in the playoffs, we might not be able to get up by that many. It might be a little bit tighter game defensively. So I think we need to be mentally focused and just control the controllables at that point, and only focus on the task at hand. And whatever happens. We got to just deal with it and keep moving forward and try to play that full 60 like we've been talking about. So,
yeah. So, key of the game, key of the playoffs is going to be mental toughness, and you have a lot of championship teams that it came down to that. And you have a lot of great teams that it came down to the lack of mental toughness. And just going through, every sport, every league, case in point, my favorite baseball team, the Dodgers, whenever they can win 110 games, but going into the playoffs, as long as they didn't have that mental toughness, they weren't making it past the first round.
Yeah.
And I think, another team to mention would be like the St. Louis Blues or the Los Angeles Kings, a team that, they didn't have the best record going into the postseason, but because they had that mental toughness, they were able to plow through. So again, I think that's a good nomen to bring into the locker room of, as long as you guys know that you can lace them up, you guys are in the game.
For sure. I think St. Louis Blues are definitely an inspirational team to us right now. A lot of people counted them out, sneaking in at 8th place. Last spot in the playoffs, maybe didn't have the best record, and went on a pretty bad losing streak in the middle of the season, I believe, that year. So they had a lot of turmoil, and a lot of people counted them out, but they knew in that side of the locker room that the strength that they had in their numbers and what they could accomplish when they came together. And I think that we feel the same thing. Maybe we don't have the greatest resumes as a team, and we don't have the greatest stats or anything like that, but we're here. We're ready to compete, and we're gonna take you to a full 60 for sure. And if it takes more, we're gonna take it to more too.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I mean, I've called hockey for a little over 7 years now, and I can say with the utmost certainty that when it comes to the mental grit that you guys had, you guys were able to come back against Watertown, for example. You guys had a 2-goal deficit coming into the third period, and, you took it yourself. And you have guys that are willing to do that. And against Athens, you had people like Ethan Madchen. It's not the high-scoring guys. It's not the guys that Coach said, that are expected to score every game that are stepping up here. And I think, again, coming into this playoffs, hockey's a magical sport. When it comes to the postseason, you have times where it's gonna be the people that you don't expect, the people that are on the second line, third line. In the defensive side, you have the bottom 6 guys that have, or the bottom 4 guys that have that extra kind of oomph to them. Is that something that, as a leader, you're trying to preach to your guys that, it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter the stats next to your name on Elite Prospects, as long as you're on that ice, you can contribute? Yeah, for sure. I think all year you're kind of learning and figuring out where you fit on the team, what's your role, what are you the best at. We obviously have the best goal scorer. We got Elijah. We got that crazy shot. We got Kuzi. We got the stay-at-home defenseman matches. But those guys can also do things outside of their role, right? We see big back checks from Kuzi last weekend, block shots from Elijah, even though they're leading in other categories. I think that is a testament to our team too, is everybody's willing to do whatever it takes. We also often have guys, trying to do a lot of things outside of their job, just because they want to help out their teammate that much. So I think everybody's kind of fit into their role and coming into their own. And the guys that are been itching for opportunities, Aaron, he doesn't get to play every game, but he got his opportunity and he was ready to make his mark. And I think guys are really, really itching for their chance to make a name for themselves going into the playoffs here. So. Yep, and Aaron Shaheen getting a 2-goal game to lift you guys up to a victory. You have Rio Namiki finding his first goal since November 30th. And I know those are storylines that I keep drilling in, but they're storylines that show who you guys are as a team. It doesn't matter the lack of success, in the point department. It doesn't matter, what position you guys play. It seems like you guys. I like to say this whenever I'm applying for a job, and I know that you guys take this as a mantra too. It's just there's no such thing as not my job. Yeah. It's just it doesn't matter where you are. The only person who has a set job is the goaltenders, and that's just to stop the puck. Absolutely. It's pretty easy playing goaltender, right? I mean, I don't know why people keep making a big deal. You just stop a puck. No, I'm kidding. I never want a vulcanized piece of rubber going at me at 1 mile per hour, let alone 10 or 15. That's just not going to happen. I'll crumple like a sack of rocks, and I will stay there. So, but, final weekend here at the River Center. Hopefully we have another week coming up on Tuesday. But, final thoughts here as we close out the show and close out the regular season? Just been a really good year. I'm excited for the final regular season weekend here, but I can promise you it's not going to be the final weekend here. We're gonna go past the playoff or play-in game here, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I believe in this group, and I think we can go really far. So. Joe Namath, Mark Messier, and now Tyler Larwood calling their shots here for their team. And if you want to keep this guy honest and keep him on his word, make sure you guys are getting your tickets here for the final week against Monroe and against the Mississippi Sea Wolves. It's going to be played at the River Center at 7:05 p.m. Central. So if you want to get your tickets, call 225-515-PUCK. Email lucy@brzyderco.com or go down to the box office. They don't bite. They're at River Road, and you can get a chance to see your captain, your coach, and your team take on the Monroe Moccasins and the Mississippi Sea Wolves and see them off in their impactful venture towards the Commissioner's Cup and the playoffs. Tyler, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so thank you guys for joining us here for the Coaches Show. For Tyler Larwood, for Everett Thompson, my name is Brian Flores saying so long, good night, and we hope to see you tomorrow night as the Zydeco take on the Monroe Moccasins. Until then, have a great night and a most pleasant good evening.
Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our DraftKings Sportsbook. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
At Don Seafood, our weekend brunch isn't just a meal. It's the moment you've been waiting for all week. Begin your legendary weekend with brunch favorites like our shrimp and grits, crab cake Benedict, and of course, bottomless mimosas. Let's be honest, the party doesn't start until Don Seafood hits the table. From our team at Don Seafood, we want to thank you for the past 90 years and cheers to many more together.